The legacy you've left behind is truly and irrefutably larger than life.
You mean my company?
I was born for it, I was made for it. Working before I was paid for it. Ain't no finish line, I'm trying to race to it. I'ma run this shit after the tape torn. Can't be easing up, I keep the speed. I need that paper busting out the ring. I don't just love it, nigga, I'm a fiend. That's why I'm never running out of steam. And yeah, I'm the pastor, but I'm a heathen. I gotta get it beat. Some bereavement, we ain't just in the league, we the leads. And pushing it till we see every region, pedal the flow. Middle of the clip, let the head of the know. I got the temperature sweltering, never so effortless. Referencing what's in the toe. Don't mention my name, listen next to the coast.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we are discussing Severance Season 2, Episode 10, Cold Harbor. Before we jump into the video, I just want to thank all of you for your patience on this review. I have gotten all of the comments. I have seen all of the comments. I have a notification for every single one. I'm sorry that it's taken this long. Again, thank you for your patience. I rather enjoy making videos about new episodes of the fiction that we commonly have shared interest in. And while the season is active, I have 1 week to finish. And it often kind of leads to the videos lacking the polish, often visually, that I have come to enjoy. I know many of you don't care. Like, I could probably show a black screen as in just a little tiny floating orb that bounces whenever I speak and talk into the void. And I know that CSL will still comment first in some note about how cracked my editing has gotten. But I want the polish. This entire thing is my canvas and I love to paint. So after the finale, I realized I could take my time again. I also needed a break from the screen in general and went to a music festival in the desert. It was called Big Bond and it is annual and I will probably be there every single year. I got to sit under the stars with the woman that I love and venture into the ether together. It was one of those magical moments of humanity that gives you perspective into the things that really matter. And if I'm completely honest, the death of Ivan Ilyich has been weighing on me since I read it. That is a powerful story, and skipping another boulder-pushing week to satisfy an art-second view count was okay with me, especially since I traded that moment for me and Vanessa realizing that our vacation selves were our innies, like different versions of ourselves that only existed outside of the work week and the normal day-to-day.
All right. All right, lock in.
Lock in. This is Vanessa and Christopher.
So thank you for waiting for me. And thank you to everybody that has joined me on this YouTube journey of a lifetime. I would also like to announce, for the cheers of everyone that believed that I could, I just bought a home. The closing cost GoFundMe is still active, and I want to thank everybody that has donated and everybody that will chip in for the final little bits that will make my first time home buying process easier. I could talk for hours about all of this. It is absolutely overwhelming, but I have surrounded myself with great people and I have a great team that is holding my hand through many of these processes. This has been a dream for many years, and please hear me when I say thank you. Your comments and profile pictures are voices in my mind and vibrate for my success. It means everything to me. Those that have been here for years know that there is usually a grace period between, when a show ends and when the content slows down, but this little break is due to the endless home buying process that I have had to familiarize myself with. Sending emails, making phone calls, paying inspectors, signing documents, somehow paying more inspectors, and then some kind of fee for some kind of person that is also a part of this process. And also, I'm just battling this impending sense of doom that something could go wrong with this amount of money that I have saved for so long, and it is finally time to spend it. All of the money that I've ever saved from making videos, live streams, your donations, canceling the DoorDash Dash Pass. Again, thank you. My dreams are coming true, and I could not have done that without you. But without further ado, let us overthink an Apple TV show about the healthy work-life balance.
Do you remember the last thing that you said to me?
She's alive.
Have you finished Cold Harbor?
The episode begins with a conversation between Mark, Devin, and Miss Cobell. They get any Mark caught up after the Lumon-controlled birthing suite was for some reason set up to allow top-secret clearance employees able to access their top-secret existence from places other than the severed floor.
Your chip is only attuned to your floor.
As an enjoyer of complex storytelling, I'm glad that this little loophole exists in the design of Severance, and I hope that it is, used against them in more ways if they are not patching this or observing this in some kind of way. However, as a cybersecurity professional, I find this outlandish at best, and it feeds into this idea that Lumon is just really bad security-wise. They're also like a little bit later, as I'm talking about everything that's going on in the finale for on the severed floor, it feels like there's just so much happening that I'm like, where's the backup? Where's the security team? Where's like anybody else? Seeing Mark enter the other birthing cabin last season and not switch, and then enter this one and switch without any kind of check, it's odd.
What is this place?
It's a cabin for giving birth.
It feels like they could have revealed more information here. Maybe this is the only cabin that does this. Maybe it's showing a progression of the tech. And I think if they included a single line of dialogue about why from Miss Cobell, people wouldn't even be focusing on this instead of the story. As a bonus, it could have really helped paint Miss Cobell as an expert over this tech to show that they do have some kind of chance with her on their side.
Why am I here? Why are you here?
We can save her, Miss Casey.
GEMMA.
This interaction is so subtle, but preps us for the largest thing that they focus on in this episode: the innie lives versus the outie lives. Miss Cobell says that it is about saving Miss Casey because she knows that that is the important thing to any Mark. It's the person that he knows, it's the person that he cares about, that he can empathize with. Devin correcting her to say GEMMA shows us how the good guys aren't even considering the other person that exists alongside GEMMA. Miss Casey isn't a person. It's not even about rescuing her. It's not even someone who needs moral consideration. It's about her old friend, and Miss Casey could never exist again, and the quote-unquote good guys would just never care to correct that. It's one word and two names of dialogue, and it has so much fucking depth. It's beautiful. This shows Mark not trusting the outies' motivations, which becomes a big internal external debate shortly.
There's a hallway down there.
From Irving's drawings.
What?
This interaction was so fun. It shocks Miss Cobell, and I really hoped that they would reveal more about Irving's plot in this moment and during the entire finale in general. But her shock just further builds the mystery and weight of how incredible it is that they already know about the testing floor being the route to success. Any Irving was taken out of the equation, but his outies plan was the correct course all along. Yet we still don't know how the outie had the plan about, painting or, trying to get a message and who he was even talking to. Just really wish by the end of the season we knew how his plan was started.
What a funny speech you gave at the party.
The Kier Crypt Keeper, James, and Helly talk about the party and how upset he was about being tricked at the party last season.
I threw a tin of candies.
It's such a wild moment that reveals that James does not love Helena. We've talked about this being possible at random moments throughout the season, but the confirmation is still quite shocking. If Helena has some third heart Shogun plans going on in the background, this leaves open the possibility of her double-crossing Lumon and the Egan name, especially since we learned that James' girls were an effort to create a successor that had the fire of Kier like he once saw in his daughter.
I used to see Kier in her, but he left her as she grew, until I saw him again in you.
He says that he sees Kier in Helly R, this fire burning inside of her that he believes will align with their founder's motives, or at least how he interprets their founder's motives. This change makes Helly R the outie daughter that he always wanted, and Helena the shamed innie. And I have little doubt that he could try to create such a scenario. He hates his daughter, and flipping the roles of innie and outie could be a simple flip of the Glasgow switch.
You and your family created hell, and you're going to burn in it.
Powerful. It's another mention of the afterlife that we have long thought was Lumon's end goal, and more importantly, we don't know exactly what he is seeing in her that he isn't in Helena. This mention of the afterlife leads to him seeing Kier again, and I don't think that that is any coincidence. The fiery nature of this delivery is the surface level cause, but to me, I'm reading this as her seeing this place for what it really is. Helena just isn't getting that.
Why did you come here? What do you want from me?
He leaves with a note about the important day ahead, and we return to any Mark learning everything he needs to know, including the stuff that he doesn't want to hear.
I'll not let you leave MDR till that file is complete.
It's not explained why this is true, and should Mark simply stop working, he would have the conditions to keep him and his crew alive forever. Who knows how long he could actually bargain with that and those conditions, but that's not the point. I'm not sure why she wants him to finish the file, but perhaps she too has hidden motives that she wishes to conceal from this overly trusting team. If the afterlife is the Kier fire that James sees in Helly, and Miss Cobell is the one person that we know is a ride or die Kieraholic before she was kicked out of the company by Helena, maybe she, in her deep reflection of Kier, found what James did, and that is the afterlife. This instruction is ultimately the thing that makes Mark finish the file. So in many ways, Miss Cobell is still the one managing the severed floor. When you consider the first scene where she focuses on GEMMA being Miss Casey, we know that she is communicating with any Mark through the lens of his feelings toward Miss Casey, and not the objective truth that rescuing her would kill her. I really feel like she could be manipulating far more than we are led to believe in this finale. Something is just up, and I cannot quite place it, but if I'm being honest with all of you and myself, this might just be wishful thinking on my behalf. Right before this, he asks if GEMMA dies when he finishes the file, and she doesn't answer. To me, stopping the progress is the move at this point. It buys them unlimited time since they have no way to force them to work in this happiness incentive managed floor. But also, asking if GEMMA dies when he finishes, and her not answering probably means that GEMMA could be fine, but Miss Casey would be the one dying.
But how do I find her once I'm down there?
No, you won't.
I won't.
No.
Your chip is only attuned to your floor.
I know I talked about this a second ago, but let me focus on this. The writers didn't have Mark say something about him existing here as well. If the chip was only attuned to that single floor, is this not baffling? And again, if Miss Cobell was given the chance to explain how this worked in this moment, it could have just really flowed so much better and made her the real voice of Severance after it is revealed that she created everything. They could then even do something where she knows too much and keeps advising, and Mark starts questioning how she knows so much, to create a nice tension between the overly trusting team and the person that is ultimately responsible for Severance existing at all, and all of them being in this situation.
But if we can prove that she is alive, if we can prove that they fucking kidnapped her, it will end them.
The way this was delivered makes me really wonder about how she came to be in their divine testing floor. I was hoping this episode would reveal how she came to be there, but the lack of reveal that it was her being kidnapped or her volunteering or her something relating to the data collected on her in the flashback episode or death or any number of things, it really makes me believe that it's the thing that we thought we knew all of those episodes ago, meaning she may have died and was brought back in some meaningful way, meaning this might not be the GEMMA that they believe that they know, but the approximation based on Mark's understanding of her. And if the conditions of her being in captivity aren't some grand mystery like that, so that, them revealing exactly how she got there would ultimately give us more information than the showrunners want us to know, then I really, really wish this episode revealed the truth of how she got down there. To me, the only excuse for not revealing this mystery is if revealing it would give us too much information about their end goals, such as immortality or afterlife, which the show clearly doesn't want to reveal just yet, or doesn't exist at all. Again, it could be anything at this point. I just feel like it's really that, and they're fucking edging me, but I've wanted to come for 2 months now. All right, I'm fucking there. I'm too sensitive now. Let me come.
Well, what happens to us?
Loved this moment. Loved this moment. Such a simple line, but it's felt like a dagger to the chest as it starts this feeling like we really have not been considering the innies in their grand plot as if they were people. If Lumon goes down, they go down. If Lumon is this big evil organization with thoughts of severing the world, taking them down would also include the death of every innie that just wants to live.
You want me to give my life
No.
just to save one person you happen to care about?
It doesn't have to end your life.
Really?
This feels like Devon realizing Miss Cobell is willing to lie to get what she wants and stops because it's somebody lying to her brother, but then ultimately realizes that the end will justify the means and there are no other options on how to advise against the truth that she and he both recognize. The truth is they are asking him to die to rescue one person that they care about, and Miss Cobell could earnestly believe that this operation does not lead to him losing his life. But I doubt that, right? Why would Mark ever sever again if he had the love of his life back? Every hour would be a precious gift in light of what happened to them before.
There's somebody else who wants to talk to you, actually. Just hit the play.
The two leave the room and any Mark is left to watch his Audi's message. Before we jump into that, I want to talk about the pregnant Kier and Imogen. Now, this is wild. A purposeful, creative choice that feels like it will mean much more in retrospect in future seasons. To me, it relates to the idea of two minds coming together to bring each other back to life, or, pregnancy as a concept of like someone being inside of you, about how important it is to truly know someone and how that could lead to resurrection in some meaningful way. Mark had a whole episode there where it really felt like he could have been pregnant, and now we're seeing Kier with a child, and I can't help but think I really did lock into some major thing that they're building toward, and we just have to wait a little bit longer for the confirmation or to understand the metaphor properly.
Hey, I guess you know who I am.
The conversation starts out nicely. Audi Mark apologizes for creating his innie in relation to the servitude that he had to serve in order to exist. It's sweet, if not a little misguided from the perspective of the innies, but it's the stance that most of us have going into this moment. The creation of the innie was a slight in some ways, but it was the grounds in which life could be planted. Also, while we're revisiting the creation of Mark's innie, let's again consider the mysterious nature of GEMMA dying or going missing that led to his innie existing at all. Since the big reveal of the season was that MDR was refining the rooms of GEMMA's testing, I find it really hard to believe that Lumon didn't have some hand in GEMMA ending up down there and Mark ending up severed. I fully believe that they collected the data on both of them, understood the deep love that they shared, or some other kind of marker that said, target them. Any Mark only got to exist because GEMMA left Audi Mark's world, and any Mark was tasked with sorting feelings that he never experienced, but knew just well enough to say if they were happy, sad, or other. It is that situation right there, that little, interaction is the thing that Miss Cobell was studying in season 1. The reason that there are some things slipping through the innie and Audi worlds. The MDR process, I believe, taps into this, where the innie is able to sort these things, to objectively view maybe their own feelings and be a little disconnected as they are trying to recreate or create these different rooms or situations of their loved one. By the end of the finale, it still feels like there's a lot of guesswork being done here, but all I want to really say is that I have a hard time believing that Lumon didn't orchestrate this entire thing.
Terrific what they've done to you. And part of the reason I'm here is to make it right.
Any Mark hears the heartfelt words of his other half and records a message by the hearth. This scene was beautifully done as the innie gets to remain inside by the warm fire of a home, and the Audi is forced to the cold, dark world outside. The messages back and forth keep these warm and cool tones as our perspective changes back and forth. It acts as a way to tell them apart, and then also becomes a way that we know that one of them has warmth in their heart for the other, and one cannot be trusted.
Nightmare is the wrong word, actually. Because we find ways to make it work.
So moving, and from a philosophy standpoint, it means so much. Say you were a chicken on an egg farm. The ways in which you came to exist were likely pretty brutal, but for a short amount of time, you get to eat food and poop out eggs, and you get to cluck at your neighbor across the way, make chicken crossing the road jokes with the other captive birds and then finally die. It sounds like a shitty life, but it's from our perspective that it would. But to a chicken that doesn't know how wonderful life can be as a human that lives for maybe 100 years, it's perfect. It is what it is. The suffering would come with the knowledge that life could be different. If aliens looked at us now and they lived for 1,000 years and could make anything that they wanted just by thinking about it, they would look at us as like we were the chickens. Like Audi Mark and all of us look at the innies. All of us find ways to make life matter, regardless of what it may look like to outsiders. And it's not some nightmare. It's just
Flashes lately, images from my world out here. I've been seeing yours too. It's a process called reintegration.
Audi Mark records a message back and brings up reintegration. He says that once his wife is free, he will finish the process and that
Our life belongs to both of us, and I want to share it with you.
which is just so funny to me because
What that mean exactly? That you get the right side and I get the left? Or is it like a top-bottom situation? I'm honestly trying to understand.
he's right. What does reintegration really look like? We still don't know by the end of this and whatever Ragabi's doing in this moment. And part of me feels like it's the death of both of them in some real ways here. The experiences each of them have are the things that make them them. And combining the two feels like it comes with the risk that they don't act or even think like the two individuals separately actually would. For the record, any Mark would he would be the bottom, although maybe like a power bottom with some dom tendencies, you know, like just to switch it up a little bit.
I mean, you've been alive for, what, 20 times longer? Whoever this new hybrid person is, it's like he'd be way more you than me.
Any Mark brings up the amount of time that Audi Mark has lived in comparison to himself, and that being the thing that would make the new person far more Audi than any. And honestly, that's a great point. I've never thought about that. So smart here.
I just don't think that's how it works. Okay, how does it work?
The conversation gets tense, and Audi Mark can feel his grasp on the operation slipping away. This isn't as easy as he thought or we thought, and Audi Mark gets real. He talks about drinking and losing his job, about pretending GEMMA never existed, and finally the choice to sever to escape. All of it. And it didn't work, of course. And then Mark fumbles in a big way.
You like someone down there? Helena Egan, right? Your innie name's Helene?
Which, if you recall, is something that happened to Audi Mark as well.
Her wife and all. Hannah.
So if we learned one solid thing about Mark this season, it's that he hates when people don't remember his girlfriend's name. This moment shows any Mark that his Audi is different from him. He could never imagine forgetting the love of his life's name, and to see himself tarnish his love, even by mistake, tells Mark all he needs to know. This is someone that will forget about him and the name of his loved ones and his people the second that he can.
You can imagine, like what you and Helene have, but multiply like thousands of days of like joy.
It is a colossal mess up, and it makes it clear that it is either any Mark and Helly or Audi Mark and GEMMA.
She's the person I'll lose if I do what you say, because you know
as well as I do that her Audi won't like reintegrate. Assuming that's even real. Assuming every word out of your mouth isn't a lie. I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to save my wife.
You know what I think? I think the second you get your wife back, you forget I ever existed. I think that I disappear along with every innie down there.
The tension explodes into these accusations and targeted attacks on character, both people being the same, but also so completely different that they can hardly empathize or sympathize with each other. It's raw and finally made clear.
Can't you just trust me?
No.
Audi Mark calls Devin and Miss Cobell and calls his innie a child. He is a brute toward his inner self, and then we get this interaction.
I mentioned reintegration. He basically called bullshit.
Well, he's not wrong, right?
Look at this response. It feels like she is upset that Devin is telling Mark the truth here. Like he himself is the child that he claims his innie to be, and revealing this threatens the operation because she needs outie Mark to do what she wants, just like they are making innie Mark do. To me, this is saying that reintegration really isn't possible, and the note about the years lived by an outie outweighing innies means that the innie would virtually die. Like, assuming that they can't simply relive the memories and some kind of dream time dilation thing could happen and they could be whole again, and both of them have a shared collective experience, virtually making their identities and their memories all together and the same. Reintegration really isn't possible, and Ragabi was just wrong. But I guess that's something that's going to be revealed in season 3, or, further elaborate about how reintegration could be possible if X, Y, and Z conditions are met in season 3.
Let me speak to him alone.
Okay, yeah.
Innie Mark and Miss Cobell get a moment together, and we finally learn
Numbers are your way. The MDR numbers. They're a doorway into the mind of your outie's wife, GEMMA Scout.
massive. We've been saying this for months now, and it is awesome to get this confirmed. Now, I'm more assured that intimately knowing each other is a pillar of this show. Imagine for a moment if he wasn't a good husband and didn't love her like he should have. They were put in this position and he didn't know the things that he should have. He maybe sorted her fear of frogs into a happy memory, and it caused a cognitive dissonance that made it impossible to keep building her mind on the testing floor, or different any versions of her mind. Perhaps that is the reason no other MDR departments finished, including Dylan here, who maybe at one point had someone on the inside, or maybe Gretchen is someone that they will kill in the future. And if he's not attentive enough, then she's not going to get to come back in any kind of capacity, assuming that they killed Gemma, which again we still don't fucking know for some reason. But ultimately, this love is rare. Nobody loved like they did. And I think in terms of the selection process that Lumon does in order to get two people into this very, very specific, situation, I think, again, the data collected on them and likely some kind of surveillance in the outside world made it clear that they would be viable. And then they made it happen. I believe that we can say that this has been done many times before this, but Mark and Gemma are the very first to prove that the concept is possible, that they have successfully created this doorway into the mind of a loved one. And whether the application is immortality or severance as a service or an afterlife or any number of things, we know that there's some reason that Gemma and Mark worked while all of the others failed. And in a story like this, I feel like, true love, intimately knowing each other, something to that effect is going to be, needed.
So you're saying the clusters are
Her tempers, the building blocks of her mind.
Massive. The tempers are the foundational blocks of a human mind, and Mark knowing them like he does is the thing that is leading to him being able to rebuild her consciousness or her mind or something stripped away so that she can be a kind of a different any version of her. I don't know. Like, honestly, I just wish I could say these things with more certainty, but again, I can't.
Every file you've completed is a new consciousness for her.
Now, the inclusion of multiple consciousness is throwing me off a little bit, because surely not all of them could be her. This makes it to where he is creating different versions of her instead of creating her. He says that he has created 24 innies, and we have seen these now, and I stick to the theory that severance as a service is the company first target, but that the afterlife and immortality could be long-term goals, or maybe goals that some people are working towards that it hasn't really been revealed to everybody else. Maybe James and Miss Cobell are on to that being possible, and Miss Cobell's soothing with the breathing tubes and the note about the bed remaining undisturbed until all that knew her sit with Kier means that she is hoping to one day be able to create just one file that means her mother can come back in some observable way. And maybe that's why, again, they didn't tell us in this finale exactly how GEMMA got to be down there, because if it was confirmed that they could recreate bodies and take them from the morgue in some meaningful way, then we would know Miss Cobell's motivations far more than maybe they want us to know.
Cold Harbor is the last. Tomorrow will be your final day at Lumon.
She reveals that tomorrow will be the last day. Both of them served their purpose and will likely be discarded as they are no longer needed. Mark, being of sound mind, then asks, "Thank you, Morty."
Wait, why are you telling me this? What are you doing here? Really?
Mark.
She avoids the answer entirely, which means to me that her motivations and everything we see her do here are still very important to consider. To me, she is managing a severed worker still, trying to get him to complete the file, and the second he starts questioning that, she targets his emotions.
There'll be no honeymoon ending for you and Heliar. She's an Egan. You're nothing to them. Nothing to her.
No, I don't believe you.
They're using you.
No, I don't believe you.
And they'll discard you like a skin husk.
I think you're using me.
Reintegration is your only chance.
Her screaming this as the last hurrah feels so manipulative, perhaps the only apparent moment of this. She doesn't believe that it's possible, as the look and little interaction kind of hints at or indicates to. And we've heard her say before, like, oh, like Mark's still alive, like Ragabi's doing that thing again, that crazy thing that is impossible. Mark's somehow still alive. Okay, let's hurry up over there. And now she's screaming that it's his only chance. I don't believe it. Something's happening here, Miss Cobell. You're not fooling me.
Do you love your brother?
Yes.
Well, then you tell him that the next thing I see had better be the severed floor, or I swear he will never see his wife again.
I care for you.
Stop!
I laughed so hard. He's like, please stop caring. It's weird and gross and comes with moments of you throwing cups at me and lactation fraud thropples. Just stop. Of course, the gambit works and he opens his eyes again to the severed floor. Now, this is a painting that I was absolutely thrilled to see. It has been on my mind since the finale aired, and I've considered a few dozen ways in which the selection of people has a rhyme or a reason. Right now, all I can really say is that these are all people that Mark, either innie or outie, has met or knows about, or concepts of people that, are in his little worldview, his perspective. On screen here are the list of names for each face that I was able to figure out. The biggest mystery for me is, whoa, this was the identity that Irving saw in the woods. The temper that Irving saw in the woods, and this being painted like it was an event that the painter themselves and, Lumon saw is just so weird to me. But then I realized the entire thing is shaped like an eye, and the concept of perceptions have been on topic since I first started exploring if MDR was refining GEMMA in season 1. So I guess the question is, whose eye, whose perspective is viewing this event? And I think that the framing here, as we see these two standing in front of it, is, pointing to this being for Mark or this being for Helly. And of course, it could be for Helena as well. Or it could be about them coming together and experiencing this event. And in retrospect, this will be something that could be created if it is really all about intimately knowing people and being able to come back and view that memory reel that I talked about in a few episodes ago, that I will talk about at the end of this episode review. In some ways, the person viewing this event is simply the audience. In other ways, it is Lumon itself, as there is this big focus on the history of what they're doing, about the grand nature, about how it's going to be remembered, about the thing that it's going to look like and be talked about. And I think that that's what we're seeing. I think that they're painting for the future. I think they're making this a grandiose thing that puts Mark at the center, as if he was like, consenting to do this, to lead the way. And in reality, he got here, but it was kicking and screaming. If the ends do justify the means, then in retrospect, the people viewing this in the future will idolize Mark. And maybe what Lumon is doing is kind of a kindness, because they have such a good understanding of what they're actually working toward. And they can't let Mark and team know for whatever reason, because it would, maybe it would make immortality impossible, right? But, they paint them in such a good picture because it's kind of what they deserve. Like Mr. Milchick is being told by Mr. Drummond that Mark's work here is going to be remembered and, be one of the most important things in the history of humanity. So I think it's really about this painting being for them. I believe that it is important to keep in mind that this was created on behalf of Lumon, and they have this history of altering art to fit their narrative. This is a Lumon painting, and it is likely printed out by O&D after seeing all of the random people included, including Balf, from his singular appearance in season 1.
The neti pot is warm.
Oh, thank you, Balf.
I did start making this list of names of people that do not appear. Judd is greeted every single day and for some reason makes no appearance. So I'm starting to think at this point it was about the important characters that should have a seat to witness this monumental occasion. But then I realized Mr. Drummond also doesn't have a seat at the table. So the importance aspect is thrown out of the window, I think, or we have to consider Balf somehow more of a mover than Drummond. Going down the IMDb page, I also came to Ragabi. She not being present makes more sense. She will likely be erased from the Lumon history whenever they finally get a hold of her, but it's curious that she was a doctor for the procedure and doesn't get a seat at the table, but somehow Balf does. Gretchen and Alexa are also missing, but I think that I've made the point. I don't think we can really infer too much about the people selected for the painting with the information that we have right now, aside from them being in Mark's relative network or understanding. He didn't know all of the Egans or exactly what woe would look like, but he knew of them. And again, I think it's really more about how history will remember this moment. So it's clearly relating to Mark. He is the center of this thing. It's all about him in this moment. It is shaped like an eye, and the Egans are above the rest of the world watching as it happens. Standing atop the waterfall that they told the severed floor is the tallest in the world, and maybe they will continue that into the future. They exist on a whole other plane of existence as the rest of the people watch from the cold, freezing water under every layer of earth that came to exist before this moment. He holds his hand up like a server would deliver a tray of food, and I think that that's intended. He's doing this for the people themselves, if the theories of immortality and afterlife are true. Otherwise, he's just being a little extra because Mark is just kind of a funny guy like that sometimes. His eyes being closed while the rest of the world watches is interesting. They want him to have some kind of worried thought before the final button press, or wishes to show him in prayer, and his hand honors the people above. Funny that the people above are the Egans. And in terms of developing a new way of showing prayer hands, this could be something like, instead of putting your hands together because God hates seeing palms, or facing a certain direction because God is directionally challenged, maybe this simply is a new funny way that humanity can offer a thought to, thank you, Morty, to the big man or big woman above. It's telling me that this is something he's doing for the good of everybody near, and is calling on some kind of higher power for reassurance. The higher power in this picture, again, are the Egans, but something else that I noticed is the clearing above their heads. It gets dark towards the top, as if it were a clear shot to space, and a virtual pillar here looks like it goes directly between Mark's computer and his work through Mark, from the water to icy tundra above, and finally into the stars. Helena here sits as the tallest of this group because of her positioning. It's, you know, she's next in line. It's about her. She's leading this charge. But if you look, her shins are visible while the others are not. It's not certain that this is true. And I bring this up just because I've been staring at this painting for hours, but I think it's showing her walking on water as kind of a symbol of great religious significance, or that the land above is completely frozen and it gets progressively colder and colder going into space. Like the warmth that is really present here, the warmest spot of this is with all of the people coming together, and then it gets colder as we go above, meaning the waterfall is really only water below this point. It's not something that occurs in nature, but maybe the point is that it is unnatural to like what they're doing is unnatural to what the world is becoming. The clouds above their heads form a half circle, much like the cliffside below. The cliffside acts as a barrier for the workers below. So I wonder if on top of those clouds is another plane of existence with people looking down on them in the same way that they look down on the people standing in the water. Maybe that is heaven or the pantheon, or maybe my confirmation bias just wants to highlight again how their goals could relate to an afterlife. Maybe instead I should highlight how the color and shapes of the space above each of them are similar to the lake that the people are standing in. Maybe the shape of the eye and the forage foliage also represent the cave of the mind. And it's really like all of this is about somebody's perception of what Lumon is doing here. Maybe I should cut all of this out and just say again that it is so funny that Balf made his way into this picture, but our boy Judd was left out.
The neti pot is warm.
Before we move on, I just want to take a moment and appreciate this art. It's magical. Like, just real talk for a second here. I have studied this for hours. I've thought about this for days. The depth cannot be understated. And it, like, the most beautiful part of this is that it is really art. You could focus on the faces, their expressions, their positioning, find a whole new depth anywhere you look and decide to focus on and relate that to the story and the fiction that we know. I look forward to your comments pointing out all of the things that I have never considered. I love it. I think that it idolizes this task and makes a plea to the unknown above. The people watching his exalted victory represent the world, and I think if we are meant to believe that this is a victory of any kind, it is over life itself, over the world, the people, and as a final note, it is heaven and earth attached to one pillar.
Me too.
The hallways are dark and leading lights push our heroes toward their office, and nowhere else seems permitted. It is a spooky scene, and control over the lights in this subterranean world is a great thing to remember. Based on how the season ends, having control over the lights or resources such as water, food, climate, any number of things can really give you the edge and make, squashing a rebellion seem a little easier. It is hard to exist without light, and it could add to the philosophy element that may come into play as Lumon will need to figure out how to stop this rebellion. I think that's why the next scene introduced is Mr. Milchick with the device that controls the lights, and of course we know that he is trapped down there with them by the end of this.
Fuck me.
Helly studies this image of her lineage, wondering if the eyes were following hers. It's a common thing to indicate the person is being watched or feeling watched, and then the note details how the founder, as though the actual founder existed inside of the animatronic, wanted to be in attendance. I think it's symbolic of their goals that they strive for. It's about Keir, certainly, and maybe about bringing him back using the methods that I've discussed previously.
Mark, the founder, wished to witness the historic completion of your 25th file. Helly R. shall also bear witness. From our chair, goodly splendors await upon your victory. Love, Mr. Milchick.
The computer turned on by itself, and this is truly odd. It's something that we've never seen before, and this season in particular has made turning on the computer somewhat of a benchmark that will decide if if, you know, they are like if it was Helly or Helena, if they're familiar with the system. And so a computer turning on by itself feels like more than that, especially with Keir, especially with this idea that he is present in the room with them. And ultimately the files flip through the workstation monitor while Keir, animatronic Keir, looms in the background. The camera angle normally shows the clock on the wall, and Keir being in front of that or removing it from the scene entirely with his presence is no happy tree accident. I think that is his goal.
Jay Megan was here. He came to see me. He said some cryptic shit about the fire of Keir being in me.
Again, it is metaphorical. The fire of Keir is the Gumcha, but if our rebuilding people based on our intimate understanding of each other is true, then he literally lives inside of her, because they would think that it is possible to recreate loved ones of hers that could then rebuild another of theirs all the way back to the founder. The issue that they will run into, if that is true, is that
I do not love my daughter.
They shot themselves in the foot by being a family more concerned with the grander picture, when life is all about knowing and loving your family and friends. Most importantly, your children and parents. It would be an epic Greek tragedy if Lumon creates the process for immortality for themselves, but could never do it because of what they had to do to make it happen.
Hello, Dylan. He said no?
Dylan arrives, and then we return to GEMMA putting on a new outfit. It is the same thing that she wore when she went missing, and the flashback confirms she remembers when this was from. It being linked to Cold Harbor and her taking apart the baby's crib makes me wonder if they are trying to create an outie version of her that has this big traumatic moment on her mind, so that when they test her later and comment about the barrier holding, it's to really make sure an actively traumatized version of her, or a more traumatized, a more volatile, hurt, offended, triggered version of her that is, you know, emotionally compromised or something, can be converted into an innie that simply performs the task without, you know, breaking the barrier. Maybe the next version of Severance will be automatic, something that can kick in whenever a moment of suffering is about to happen or just happened, and that is why she needs to wear the clothes from the night everything went wrong. I think the most interesting thing about that, though, is that what GEMMA has a flashback of is her leaving. And if she goes missing or is abducted by Lumon or just dies, then it seems like she would have like a memory of like that. Like that would be how she's linking the, you know, the outfit to this tragic thing, not the tragic thing in and of itself being her leaving the, you know, their home. So I really think that maybe she doesn't remember. Like maybe she was rebuilt and like certain parts of her memory are still absent, because this would be such a good moment to show us kind of a scene that we've never seen before, like her going into a dark alley, or, you know, entering the Lumon campus, or, you know, Bert is in the shadows waiting for her as she walks by, or something like that. And the fact that it is just something that we've seen before, it's her memory, it kind of just seems like maybe she doesn't have access to it, or the truly traumatic thing that happens on this night is just something that we're already thinking of. And again, revealing exactly how she ended up here would, you know, take away some of the other mysteries that they're working on.
So, what happens when they extract the chip? But how can we trust anything Cobell says?
Helly brings up why he thinks that he can trust Miss Cobell, and Mark only adds that this time she felt different. Another reason I wish that Miss Cobell would have had more information than she did outside, because then Mark could have explained that she was forthcoming with information when she wasn't before. If Miss Cobell isn't actually some masterful pawn of Keir, and she is still trying to manage the severed floor from outside of the company to win back her standing, then this just feels like a missed opportunity. But don't sleep on the idea that Miss Cobell is still viewing herself as a manager, because she was the one that told Mark he needed to finish Cold Harbor before rescuing GEMMA. Nothing happens this episode that shows he needed to do that.
All she's ever done is lie.
I know, but she seemed different. I mean, she's the same, but like different, same. I mean, I could
just not do it. I could just not finish the file, not get her out.
They debate not finishing the file, if his Audi is a liar, if Lumon can be taken down. It is a slow build to a beautiful moment where Mark tells Helly,
But I want to live with you.
it is heartbreaking. The only time they will ever be together is on this floor with these severed versions of themselves. Helly knows Helena would never allow them to be together, even if everything goes right, and this is ultimately the end. It is a painful moment written perfectly. She gives him permission to end their lives together by offering encouraging remarks. I have no doubt that she feels a great deal of pain, but keeps it to herself because she loves Mark. She wants him to have a chance at life, even if it means that she will never get another day to live. He locks in on the file and starts building the last of Cold Harbor, and we come to Dylan.
Your Audi has responded to your resignation request, as it may yield an embarrassing emotional response in you. And as I'm duly swamped, I shall leave you to read it in solitude.
So funny. Like, yeah, he's like, you're probably going to be a little butthurt over not getting your way, and I don't feel the need to cut another belt, so I'm going to give you some alone time. And then he does this. Not gonna lie, kind of scared me when this first happened. It was wild. It was unlike him, and then we could only keep this urgency in our mind while everything else unfolds, and our heroes were trying to figure out how to get to the, you know, the room.
Dear Innie, point one, fuck you.
Love this. Audi Dylan is Innie Dylan in many ways, and this was a good reminder of that.
Point two, I get it. She's perfect.
Also, a little mark on the top of the paper makes me wonder if this was a paperclip that was put on incorrectly and then removed by Mr. Milchik before he put it inside of this envelope.
I hope someday she sees in me what she sees in you. If I'm being really honest, I guess I like knowing you're there. If you want to leave, you can, but I think you should stay.
Audi Dylan does a great job of writing to himself here. Bringing up their shared love of Gretchen is genius. He also gets vulnerable and lets him know that he looks up to his Innie in a couple different ways. I think this ends with Innie Dylan accepting the terms of his imprisonment for the sake of himself and his family, and Audi Dylan wanting to be more like the self-assured badass that he could theoretically be.
Been trying to think of other place names besides Delaware. Europe, Zimbabwe, and the equator.
These locations are interesting. I did some research into Zimbabwe after finding an article talking about who created the stone walls, and a whole bunch of talk about colonialism erasing the rich history and craftsmanship of what they accomplished. The stone walls remain today, assumingly not as high as they once were, but they are still quite impressive and were created without mortar. Just perfect refining of stone, leading to a stability that survived the ages. After the rest of the world got their hands into Mother Africa, the story became a little skewed, and even in the 90s, people were debating if Africans could have built this at all, and if it was Europeans or Middle Easterns or anybody else. Thankfully for Zimbabwe's artisans, some records of their accomplishment upheld, and there's no doubt that human hands and African determination made these sprawling hierarchical cities. But the point of all of that is that colonialism and cultural erasure has been building in the background of Lumon and Lumon's movers. I talked about this more in recent videos, so I won't go too deep into the recapping of it, but Lumon historians could rewrite history in many ways, and that was something that already was going on in Zimbabwe, again, up until the 90s. And we still do not know exactly how the real world looks. Delaware could maybe exist for Americans, like as a mark on the map for people living in the Americas. Europe for Europeans, Zimbabwe for Africans, and the equator is maybe the only place humans can live in the world that is constantly frozen on closer to the poles. Also, I'm really curious if it's like building an address, like as if this was a marker of humanity in some kind of way, like a marker from each place around the world, and then it's like the collective Earth address. No idea. Just was talking to my girlfriend, and you know, that came up, and I was like, oh shit, like that could be it. So credit to her for that. There are a lot of assumptions in a lot of what I'm talking about right now. I'm more just sharing the desire to find commonalities or interesting ways that these places could have additional meaning. The line about meeting at the equator later feels like one that will have great meaning in a few seasons, especially since they don't know what the equator is. The Lumon logo is a globe whose letters cross the equator. It could also be about going into the world itself, as it's, you know, subterranean living may be where we need to go should the outside world become uninhabitable. These aren't concepts really being discussed in the show, but if the seals are dying and the gorillas need saving and...
Okay, if our Audis are up there severing their brains, shit must have gotten pretty bad.
Then I think we really do need to consider why life inside is shown as warm and bright, while the outside world was shown as dark and cold. I think this dialogue between them about random places they remember is meant as a joke to calm their worried minds, but the world-building potential is just so interesting to me. Surely this must mean something. Let me know what you think it means that these are the only places severed workers of Lumon are allowed to remember.
The equator. Is that a building?
Or a continent?
Maybe it's just a building that's like so big.
That it became a continent.
Yeah.
It then gets a little more real.
Just wish we had more time.
Mark finds the final set of numbers and sits with this note from the woman that he loves. More time is what we are all after, and it's why I think Lumon is trying for that in the grandest of ways. It's perhaps the most human thing, to live and somehow be unsatisfied that we got to experience anything at all. I got to walk today, but I didn't get to fly. I have lived a blessed life more than I have suffered, and I'm aware of the present in a way that I hope my future self appreciates. But I have no doubt that appreciating the moment and not will still create a future that wants more time. This operation marks their death and asks for them to be okay with their amount of time while the rest of the world begs for more. I'm glad that any Mark made the choices that he does. It is the most human thing that he could have done. Also, the numbers added together equal 41, but it equates to 1% of the file. If we add those together, we get 42, which is the answer to the ultimate question of life in the universe. But, you know, I don't know why we would add the 1 there. So I think it's more appropriate that it's only 41, like it's just short of the answer to the ultimate question of life and the universe.
At least it's a happy one.
They share this soft moment, and I really wish we see Helly put her hand on his and press the button like with him, as if she was really okay with him choosing life without her, and he may not have done it without her selflessness. Either way, the file is complete.
Call Mr. Egan.
The lights then shut off, and we see what working at Lumon is all about. Here, Egan AI then details how important his completion of the 25th macro dat file is, that all of these were his files, and whatever the task was will make him one of the most important people in the history of the world. It's nothing that we haven't talked about before, but then hear this.
And hail your earthbound steward.
Mr. Milchick, the earth-bound steward. It is wild verbiage. It's telling us that they are heading for the cosmos or heavens, and Milchick is the person who will stay behind after enabling the completion of this grand event. Earth-bound steward is wild to me. Loved that we get this.
Floor manager.
The laugh track. The fucking laugh track. So unexpected, like everything else that was about to happen.
I'd say the same of you, if not for my favorite core principle.
Probity?
No. Vision.
I get the joke, all right? The animatronic can't see. The punchline was vision, but something about this is racist. I can feel it in my bones. And with the idea of earthbound Stewart in mind, it could also mean bound to the earth via shackles or chains, which, should the imagery of severed slaves become more prevalent in future seasons, it could make us view this scene with much more of the racial undertones that maybe I'm just imagining or something. But yeah, he gets called an earthbound Stewart and then gets negged by an old white man from the 1860s. Like, what's happening here?
Good thing you didn't write the first appendix. It would have burst.
Now, my favorite part of this episode, literally my favorite part, nothing comes close. The writing makes me want to write better and be in the same conversation as this.
It's an honor to receive your barbs, Mr. Egan. The legacy you've left behind is truly and irrefutably larger than life.
You mean my company?
Implying their goals and due diligence was always to create something bigger than life itself. They want to supersede the creation of life. And that could take place, and, it exists in a variety of different ways. But the company is the thing larger than life. Mr. Milchick says that he's not talking about his company, but the improper replication of Kier himself, which is not so subtly also talking about his company. This is giving us everything we need to know about Lumon. They bastardize life and have these ideas, these grandiose plans, but they are delusional and will make themselves bigger than they were in reality. They will fail because Kier's essence was lost due to the insecurities that made the Lumon sculptor go, no, he needs to be bigger, not accurate. And that probably wasn't just the sculptor, but, top down kind of politics, or somebody explicitly saying, no, make him bigger. There is little fidelity if they can't even get his documented height right. They may want to bring back dead humans and thus escape death and become larger than life, but they can't even accurately create their leader. The process is flawed, and I think it's flawed because of the reasons I talked about before, where the family will never be able to bring him back because they never learned from the death of Ivan Ilyich. Money and status drove them, and it still drives them, and now Mr. Milchick is seeing from earthbound eyes the truth of his existence. Earthbound is also another great way of saying that he's holding it down, or he's being real, he's down to earth, and now he can shit talk the founder's image and the person or programming that so poorly recreates him because he is seeing the company messing up where it shouldn't be.
Thank you for that feedback, Seth.
And then my second favorite part.
Choreography and merriment.
Okay, so in this moment, I realized the entire show was about creating moments for Milchick to dance. Every single season, this must happen. It's the whole purpose. It's the enjoyment of life, regardless of the environment that you're in. And as such, Milchick needs to dance every season. If they do that, it could have additional meaning if, say, season 3, Milchick starts to dance and then gets stopped by Mark or Helly dancing instead as a way to show the power shifting from the powers that be to the people fighting to survive. It's about merriment, and I love the idea that these people only exist to dance in a marching band and play instruments in a marching band. Their entire lives are just this, and every single day for 8 hours a day, they do this. An existence like that has so much depth, and I would watch an entire episode if they showed these people's day-to-day struggles while prepping for the moment. There's so much emotion there. Art is a beautiful thing, but you put me in a room just like making videos for 8 hours a day, for an entire existence, and I'm not going to be too happy about it, right? And I think that if their floor is managed, or their department is managed in the same ways that we've seen MDR managed, I can imagine this group also has a lot of turnover.
Welcome, Mr. Egan. The efficacy test will begin shortly.
James Egan sits down at this computer, also being supervised by Kier, metaphorically, assuming, and we see GEMMA being walked to Cold Harbor. So this confirms that it's all about the efficiency of the Severance procedure for this new version of Severance they are testing, still hoping that it is called Severance as a Service, but we shall see. The testing floor purpose and the goal of the test was never outright stated, but I do think it relates to creating Severance chips that can create multiple innies that sever for different purposes, maybe even automatically or something to that effect. The number of innies is really the only thing that we know differs in these, in these things. So that's really the only thing I can say with full confidence is happening here. I'm a little perplexed at the finale for not giving us more information about all of this, but here we are.
I have to leave.
With a ballad of Ambrose and Gunnel.
Ambrose was the black sheep of the Egan family and Keir Egan's son. Gunnel is a character that I don't think we have too much information on, but we learned last episode that there is a empathy center founded by or for him. I think I've said this before, but empathy in the current Lumon workplace culture is not something that is really at the front and center of their minds, right? Empathy or happiness or, things that make the workers feel cared about is secondary to profits. And I feel like if this is truly about changing the workplace culture and like what they're doing has a positive benefit for humanity at the end of all of this, then the biggest challenge will be about refocusing the culture at the workplace, because it's kind of a metaphor for all of life and how we exist as a society. And so reframing it so where it's not that profit first, and the people that value that and the dogs that eat each other to get to the very top, and refocus that so that it is the people that are making sure that we take care of each other as we all sit at the table, as we make sure everybody has enough food, as we make sure that people aren't working more than they should be, and and then so whatever the positive or whatever the product is could still be a great product, but the Ambrose story, whatever it is, the Gunnel story, whatever it is, those are the parts where this family and the culture could have been different if the family had listened to them. I think that's kind of what I'm feeling about this. But again, I'm kind of extrapolating on not a lot of information. Both of them feel like outcasts to the current Egan family. Gunnel, because the happiness reforms were laughed at, and it feels like empathy is often left to the side in business, like I talked about. And Ambrose, because I guess we don't know yet, but the death of Ivan Ilyich includes a dying judge coming to understand spirituality in his final moments and how he wishes that he had a better relationship with his loved ones, and his son included. I wonder if Keir Egan had that journey as being resigned to a deathbed is something that he has faced ever since he was a child. I wonder if after he wrote The Four Tempers, a spiritual moral tale, I believe, that his son heard the warning and wanted to change the stars before he too laid dying in that same bed, surrounded by the people that treated him like a sour fart in the room, and maybe it wasn't received well by the rest of the Lumon Egan family. Maybe Ambrose tried to educate his family, but his sister only saw weakness that threatened the life of the family business. She kicks him out, she takes his role and becomes the third CEO, and then fanned the misguided flame of Keir into every CEO after and every employee they managed. Of course, it is all theory crafting, but I think Milchick playing the tune of these two is no bit of chance if Mr. Milchick is going to have some kind of arc where he is a good guy, which I really believe that that's where we're heading. I think that for him to exist and get what he wants, and change, maybe change the culture at the company, then like something to this effect of this story of Ambrose, of the death of Ivan Ilyich, of the family, the culture being a little misguided, but ultimately having a chance should somebody step up and try to educate the rest of the people. Mr. Milchick trying to reach out to Natalie in a private moment feels like he could have already been trying to do that exact same thing and just has to overcome the hoops and challenges that will make any good story good. Mark and Helly need to escape to get what they need done, and Milchick unknowingly creates the conditions for them to get away. It's chaos, and if they just sat in a room by themselves, everything would have been fine. I really wonder about the security standards of this company and why they are so dumb sometimes. Like, why isn't this floor being watched? Where are the backup floor managers or another floor manager or something? It just seems like they suck at their jobs. And maybe the purpose there is that the bad policy stems from that bad philosophy that I was just talking about, all the way from the top down. And, they're just underestimating the worker at every chance they get because, they don't view them as people. Love this. What a great moment introducing her character to the episode. The makeup looks off-putting, the wardrobe, the goats. Oh, love this.
Helly, where's Mark?
I don't know!
A strength of 2 men bodybuilder Dylan comes in and saves the day. We stand. She finally enters cold storage and hears the instructions of the doctor as she studies her own clothes. We see the baby crib that Mark broke apart and...
Who are you?
She doesn't know, of course, and we see Jaime Egan smile while Mr. Drummond opens a secret door.
Mammalian's nurturable brings an offering.
Now it gets weird.
Has it verve?
It does.
Wiles.
The most of its flock.
What is about to happen? First time watching this, I'm thinking about every theory that I've ever read relating to these goats. My mind is going crazy when I hear this.
This beast will be entombed with a cherished woman, whose spirit it must guide to Kyr's door.
I'm dying to know who and why. I want to know who the woman is, what the tomb is, if the connection of goat and person being concealed together really confirms the theories about putting human consciousnesses in goat brains. Like, if that was the end goal this entire time. Those are all like the thoughts rushing through my mind in the moment. Now I think it's a little more obvious, but it was great tension here as they slowly deliver more information about the process.
Is it up to the task?
The bolt gun here is used to execute cattle. They are single-shot devices that require a new cartridge every time, and that's important for later. But they are said to be somewhat humane, I believe. If my single course of animal studies, what the fuck did I take in country Texas high school? It was like it was like an intro to veterinary medicine or something like that. But I don't know. But I remember that they were like somewhat humane. Like, my understanding is that it results in instant death, minimizing the amount that the animals suffer. Of course, you're still killing the animal, but I think it's about finding something that kills them efficiently and with the least amount of pain possible. Something is telling me this gun is too big for the goat, but maybe that's the point. It's more brutal than it should be. This feels like it would cave the skull in, but maybe the Hollywood idea is that it would create the perfect little circle into the goat's head, much like the holes that were created for these severed workers. This goat being entombed with a female worker, likely GEMMA, reminds me of the painting where the 4 MDR workers are buried up to their necks, being pardoned. At the time, I kind of interpreted this as Kyr being the gardener, and these were the minds that needed to be grown, to be, molded in a certain way, to be reframed on the light of Kyr and their philosophy that will, endure. Ultimately, science fiction wise, more could be happening here, although I really think I'm just reading this as like, it's archaic nonsense symbolic of them not updating with the times. This remains because goat sacrificing, when that was happening, they were a prosperous company, and then the CEO never learned that this wasn't needed, or not the CEO, but like whoever was in charge, and it stayed, but updated slightly. I imagine it was much more of an ordeal at the start, maybe a bunch of people in robes around a campfire under a full moon kind of thing. But now it's streamlined and, for cleanup and ease of use and this specific hidden room, it being a hidden room does kind of point that it is, they're self-aware that this is not exactly a normal thing. This situation is so interesting to me. It's further developing the religious cult-like feel that Lumon has always had, and I cannot wait to learn the roots of this and exactly how we go from child labor, ether production to witchcraft.
We commit this animal to Kyr in his eternal war against pain.
More stuff refining Lumon's end goals, stopping suffering, Severance for the ability to create a human experience that will never have to deal with pain. I talked before about why that is problematic, but it can be summarized with one word. Grow. No suffering, no loss, no learning, no growth. Humanity stagnates and self-enslaves because they lose the ability to have empathy for themselves.
How many?
How many what?
How many more must I give?
Oh shit. Big drop here. First off, the seeds of rebellion grow inside of her and possibly all of the people that Mark inspired during their visit. He's changing minds, and now she questions why she must lose more of her beloved goats to the thing that she can see no benefit of. It also implies a great number of moments that have happened before that required a goat to accompany someone to the afterlife. Goats and the afterlife have some significance, but really it's nothing that we haven't explored before. This goat would likely be tasked with getting the dead woman's soul and mind to Kier's afterlife. I really just want to know how many times this has happened, and if it's telling us directly that Lumon has killed many people for any number of reasons and do this each and every single time, or if it specifically relates to MDR. It may only relate to MDR and when somebody finishes their files in the testing floor process, or maybe every single refiner has tried to do the 25 successful files and has failed, and unknowingly has lost loved ones along the way, and thus she loses another goat. So in a way...
What if the cost of that help is that you're murdering people 8 hours a day and you don't even know it?
This would be such a brilliant way to reveal that their past failed files did lead to them murdering someone as a day job.
As many as the founder calls.
Again, making Kier god of whatever afterlife they are striving for. While this happens, Mark finds the door and then Mr. Drummond.
Mark S.
Wild. He stared at his employee for a moment, understood his job was done, and then after 5 seconds of consideration just said, let's kill him. It is a brutal tell of the company and the people running it. Thankfully for Mark, Brienne of motherfucking Tarth was at the fucking ready.
No more killing.
They have a big, beautiful battle scene, and every part of Game of Thrones me was thrilled to see her again.
Wait!
Mark saves his life to use him as a hostage, and we see GEMMA working on the crib.
The barrier is holding. She feels nothing.
Again, severance, suffering, worse conditions, the loss of a child, and it still works.
Thank you.
Emil thanks you.
We love you, Emil. We love you. All right, we fucking love you, man.
Oh, okay.
Mark gets him inside of the elevator and starts giving all of the best instructions in the world. Loved this. Lost my fucking mind. So funny. Of course this happens. Of course it goes wrong in the worst way possible. And now Audi Mark is waking up to a dying man, a murder weapon in hand, covered in blood, and no idea where to go, or even where he is. Another moment where I'm just so curious why this building does not have better security. Helly fends off Milchick trying to escape, and Audi Mark scans the testing floor for Cold Harbor.
Choreography and merriment, return to your department now!
Fall back to CNN. Our performance has been compromised.
No.
Helly explains that they are trying to kill their entire department, and what they are doing is trying to save their own lives. She brings up too that they have probably also lost people to the recent tariff layoffs, severance thing, and it works.
And they want our whole department gone. If he gets out, we're dead. They're gonna turn us off like fucking machines.
Loved her speech here. It's simple, it's to the point, but it works. It's, about rallying together, about, treating humans as humans, and it gets the point across.
They give us half a life and think we won't fight for it.
Amen, brother. Amen. Love this. And it starts priming us for the reveal that any Mark has not been convinced to abandon his own existence later on.
How'd you get in here? Jesus.
Open the door.
Step off, fuck out.
Do it.
No!
Comedy gold. So stupid, so wonderful. Loved this. His gun doesn't fire again. He can only wave a heavy metal object at her, and he isn't the kind of person to hurt other people in general, I don't think. And they just yell and cuss at each other, and then she runs away from him so that he can access the final testing floor that holds her prized cattle. Jesus. Okay, so we see the focus shift to this authentication system. I'm on cloud 9 my first watch through because I'm like, wait a second, he's going to have to cut off Drummond's hand or something, because I'm thinking it requires a handprint because of how the wall inlet looks here, and blood because of the little finger prick. Finding out that this wasn't actually a two-factor authentication system and they just designed the blood draw to look like a hand, it bothered me, honestly, to no end. And this might be the dumbest gripe that I have, but I have died on way smaller hills. If the credentials for authentication were solely the blood, why couldn't this have just been a little glory hole that you put your appendage in and then it pricks you? Like, you know, like I'm talking about your finger. This was so much cooler as a two-factor sci-fi authentication system. I'm not even upset. Like, I don't even care that much, but, you know, like if Ben Stiller could fucking call me back finally, then we could talk about this. And yeah, honestly, Ben Stiller, I don't think I want to be your friend anymore. Okay. I know that we had something going on, you and I, many nights at the movie theaters, platonically. Okay. Although hit me up otherwise. But like, we were just hanging out and having a good time. But then you stopped returning my calls, and I loved you, man. And you can't treat people like this. Okay, you can't make a blood scanner that looks like a handprint not do handprints as well. Okay, all right, you just can't fucking treat people like this.
Jim.
What a sight to behold. He finally finds his wife, and she turns to see a man that she has never seen. 10 minutes into her existence, covered in blood.
I'm your husband.
He comes in and starts ruining the entire test.
This is not a part of the test. Don't speak to that man. He's here to hurt you.
Her trusting this blood-soaked man could be pointing to some of the barriers breaking down, or love transcending severance.
Oh, fuck.
Mark leaves the room, and when GEMMA does, she changes back to her Audi. Miss Cobell did say that his chip was only attuned to the severed floor, so that's why he does not change. But then it's never explained why he changes at the cabin, so either way.
Come on. It's okay.
Oh, my heart. Imagine what they must be feeling. Soft, sweeping music takes over as they share a moment together, but it is immediately interrupted by... The entire building goes on lockdown, and GEMMA leads the way to the elevator. We see Mr. Milchick staring at himself in the mirror, and it feels like he's getting ready to self-flagellate again. And the doctor runs after GEMMA while Milchick summons some otherworldly strength to move what he could not before. The doctor begs for them to stay with...
You'll kill them all!
I loved this line and immediately knew that it was something to consider further. My first take is that it is just the individual innies of GEMMA. The innies that he has taken a fancy to, that he has worked on, that he has like confirmed 25 successful, other innies exist. And it is quite an accomplishment for either Severance as a service or the larger things that they're working towards. It's not clear why her leaving would kill them, but it's possible that this new version, 25 separate innie thing isn't able to leave the building for some unknown reason. Maybe it merges them all back to a single innie or something like that. That could be pretty wild. Like one innie that is very much the whipping boy for all of the pain that each of these rooms have caused her. Existence at that point might truly be just pain and not something that even her innie would want to experience again. Like Miss Casey would be still alive, but it would be Miss Casey that was traumatized by all of those things, or it just erases them entirely. It just feels like there's a million ways you could write this very specific thing. However, I think more broadly, this is talking about all of humanity. Their testing being for the recreation of humans or human minds in different forms and different bodies. bodies and the implants, or however they write this immortality afterlife plot, that could mean, if that is going on, that could mean that this testing is for that, and he's saying that you will kill them all, meaning all of humanity, and nobody is going to get to come back, and everybody is damned to death that they were just about to overcome. Like, they were just hoping that they were about to be larger than life, and now you have, because of your own selfish need to, have individual freedom or something, you've just killed everybody. But I guess it's anybody's guess.
What's taking place?
Mark doesn't reply, but grabs her and runs for the stairwell. Milchick makes it out, and so does GEMMA.
Fuck you, Mr. Milchick.
Then it gets interesting.
Mark, come on! Come on, Mark!
I was so torn about what was about to happen. It could have gone either way, and at one point I was expecting Helly to walk up, give him a kiss, and then push him through the door herself. The fact that she ran all of the way there just to see him one last time, and then Mark realizes they could have more time together right then. Everything. I mean, everything. This is the present. This is the moment where you need to focus on the loved ones instead of the uphill boulder pushing. He is an individual and acts accordingly. They hold hands and run into the nothingness. It doesn't matter that Lumon controls this space or their food, light, water, everything. It's about having more time together despite the impending death that faces all of us. It's about enjoying the present without the constant thought of the worst things that could exist at the end of the hallway. It's beautiful. And if you didn't catch it, the white lights have returned, meaning that this could be a memory being viewed like we discussed in the flashback episode. The film burn effect, to me, represents the ability to recall and store memories, like they are being recalled right now, and we're seeing this in a different time, like the present isn't truly the present kind of thing, although it doesn't need to be that crazy, right? Ultimately, they are stored, and this is a frame from the previous episode that gives us a single moment where the flashback is stored inside of a single frame of traditional film. It feels like they're building to a big, beautiful reveal, and these two experiencing this moment that's being preserved has some meaning too. That flashback episode shaped my thoughts about how it could be more about two people's understanding of each other or an event, and that being the key to recreating whatever they were going for, rather than just a single person recalling what reality was. Here, it's Helly and Mark. He's experiencing a life that ends in the best way possible when he chooses people over projects, and these are the moments that will prove they are able to bring each other back. This is them truly and intimately knowing each other, spending time together that will survive long after their bodies are gone. I think that is the entire point of this show, and I really did hope to get some confirmation or just disapproval of any of these assertions in this finale. I guess I'm going to continue holding my breath through season 3 and hope season 3 has some more for me. But with that, we come to the end of the episode. Thank you to everybody that has joined me in these videos since Westworld, and everybody that has found me in this season of Severance. I am very pleased to know you enjoy my thoughts on fiction and the world that inspired said fiction. If you want to support me right now, please check out the GoFundMe and give a couple bucks for the final bits of closing cost for the home. Anything helps. Simply hitting like and commenting, and subscribing, like whatever that is. More projects are on the way on this channel, on Instagram, on maybe some anime music videos or different video edits, and maybe some writing projects as well. Again, it is so incredibly moving that so many of you came together to help me buy a home for the first time. I will talk about that for the rest of my life. That is the coolest thing. That is such a gift. I appreciate all of you so much. And yeah, I am thankful to live for a little bit and connect with all of you. I think that your vibe attracts your tribe, and I am glad that we are here together. Much love, everybody, and I cannot wait to talk to you all again soon.